Welcome friends. Today's video is our most conspiracy-heavy one yet. You'd think, what could possibly connect people as different as Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, jazz, Beyonce, and say a $1 bill? Throw in the Clintons, both Bushes, Senior and Junior, and Trump while we're at it. And basically, all of them are going to be the stars of today's episode. You might say what connects them is dollars. And sure, pretty much all of them are dollar millionaires. We don't actually know Jefferson's and Washington's net worth, but I'm guessing they weren't exactly broke either. But really, today we're talking about the secret order of the Illuminati. Let's get one thing straight right away. When I talk about the Illuminati, I'm working with two parts. The first part is historically grounded, backed by documents that actually existed. The second part is pure conspiracy theory, all the way through. And it's honestly fascinating how these two conspiracies weave into each other. So what are the Illuminati? The word illuminatus comes from Latin and means enlightened, initiated, illuminated. Basically, people who possessed secret knowledge. There's a version of the story where the Illuminati, as a secret society, originated in ancient Egypt, then migrated to Greece, and from Greece to the Roman Empire. Nearby there was a cult devoted to the goddess Hecate, complete with human sacrifice and all that. Later on, it's claimed the Illuminati were closer to the cult of the goddess Demeter, the goddess of fertility. In one mythological interpretation, she's the mother of everything born on Earth, and partly responsible for cosmic order. But all of this is a massive pile of myths, beliefs, superstitions, and conspiracy theories that have followed humanity since, well, forever. The Illuminati order was an occult philosophical order, the same kind of thing as, say, the Freemasons. The order was originally aimed at overturning monarchies across European countries, liberating the human mind, enlightening people. The goal was to cast off obscurantism and, essentially, develop humanity as a rational species. Because in the Illuminati's view, God created the earth, created people, and then let it all go, released waves of pure reason into the world, and reason took care of the rest on its own. Humans were supposed to strive to enlighten themselves and, ultimately, build a new world order, one governed by human reason. That's actually one of the Illuminati's mottos, a new world order subordinate to human reason. The Illuminati movement was invented by Adam Weishaupt. This professor lived in Bavaria and came up with the order in 1776. What drove him? He was an educated man, and on one hand, he was furious at the dominance of monks and clergy, who did everything they could to stamp out enlightenment. In his view, the clergy worked to keep people in the dark and uneducated for as long as possible, which, honestly, isn't wrong, because, as we all understand today, science and politics eventually replaced what the church used to handle. Science captured people's minds, whereas before, the church was mainly the ruler of human souls. Weishaupt argued that people aren't inherently bad. Everyone is born good. But then they end up in an environment that corrupts them, keeps them ignorant and downtrodden, and subjects them to the will of a monarch or the church. And that's how a person gets ruined. It's worth saying that Illuminati ideas were very similar to Masonic ideas. Even more so, the structure and rituals were very similar. And here's where it starts. Adam Weishaupt actually to join the Freemasons, but he couldn't afford it, and they turned him down. So he decided to found his own secret order instead. At first there were very few Illuminati, about 12 people. Later on, this inner circle would form the so-called Areopagus, 12 of the wisest members who would run the order. In 1776 there were only 5 people in the order. That number grew to 12. But in 1780, the famous German diplomat Franz Albert von Friedrich joined the order, and his role in building it was enormous. As already mentioned, he was a diplomat with huge connections, tied to the heads of Bavarian noble houses, with contacts in England and France, connected to the Spanish Habsburgs, and, most importantly, connected to the Freemasons. That's the moment members started flowing out of the Masonic order and into the Illuminati. By 1782, the order had 650 members, with cells and branches structured across all of Bavaria. So what was the Illuminati's goal? The order's objectives were never officially written down anywhere, but here's how they were described in oral and written sources of the time. A universal shift in political structure, from monarchy to republic. This is the point that would later get the Illuminati blamed for orchestrating the French Revolution. Fighting superstition and ignorance to pull people away from the church and toward modern enlightenment. abolishing private property and inheritance rights, an idea already pretty close to communism, erasing national identity, basically international globalization. This idea would later be used to claim that the Illuminati were the original globalists, that they wanted to build one single society, dissolve all national identities, strip people of their national character, and create one big enlightened nation. Later, this idea would evolve into the theory of the Golden Billion, an elite who, for their own benefit, would rule over the ignorant masses of the planet. Pushing out Christianity, a doctrine of atheism, claiming that God created the earth but everything else runs on the laws of nature and reason. And one more point, rejecting family and blood ties. This particular point became a goldmine for fantasies and conspiracy theories, everything from their into promiscuity to the world is run by a giant clique of pedophiles. The order's structure. It consisted of 3 degrees. The first degree, the Minervals, named after the goddess Minerva, patron of crafts and the arts. This included scholars. The second degree, Freemasons, including Scottish knights. And the third degree, a semi-mystical class. These were occultists who gathered to ponder the fate of the world and how to pit their own doctrine against that of the church, and so on. At the top of it all stood the so-called Magus King. There's a bit of a parallel here to the Magi and Christ. This king stood at the top of the pyramid, and, appropriately enough, a pyramid with an all-seeing eye and the inscription New World Order became the symbol of the Illuminati. The structure grew quickly, mostly by absorbing elites. Some defected from the Freemasons, some were recruited outright. It's worth noting the Illuminati never did open recruiting. It worked through the classic secret society playbook, which made it appealing to people. The Illuminati became fashionable and popular. Their ideas, which lined up with Enlightenment thinking and the ideas of French philosophers, resonated with a public tired of monarchy everywhere and tired of the church standing in the way of progress. The order started spreading across Europe, though mainly it stayed centered in Bavaria. When we talk about the Illuminati today, it feels like this order has this long, sprawling history, but in reality, it all wrapped up fast. In 1784, Bavaria's rulers banned the Illuminati. Bavaria's ruler, Karl Theodor, banned all secret societies for a simple reason. He suspected, and in many ways he was right, that these societies were breeding grounds for conspirators looking to topple monarchies everywhere and strip him of power. Then, in 1785, a special decree specifically targeted the Illuminati, treating them as an illegal offshoot of the Freemasons. And the law was brutal, confiscated property, prison sentences, and even executions. The head of the Illuminati fled Bavaria and stayed in hiding for the rest of his life, but he kept corresponding with members of the Areopagus. One archive turned up his wish to use women to make contact with new recruits, since women, in his view, more easily win people's trust and hold sway over men. He also wanted women to serve as Illuminati agents, a detail that would later feed straight into global conspiracy lore. So what's the difference between Freemasons and Illuminati? As already mentioned, most Illuminati were also Freemasons. But here's the difference. As we know, Freemasons only admitted people who practiced a religion, first Catholics, later Protestants and Catholics too, and in modern times even Muslims. The Illuminati, on the other hand, recognized no religion at all and didn't admit believers into the order. This later became one of the main accusations against them, that instead of the pyramid with the all-seeing eye, they actually worshipped the devil's horn, with the number 666 on their seal, that they were servants of Satan. They also didn't admit Jews or women, though women were later brought in specifically as agents. All in all, there's a lot of overlap between the Freemasons and the Illuminati. After fleeing, Adam Weishaupt hid out in the city of Thuringia for the rest of his life, since he was facing a death sentence. And that's where the actual order disappears, and where the long, sprawling conspiracy theory saga begins. Because of the Illuminati's stated goals and ideas, theories emerged claiming the Illuminati were building a secret world government. The main theory is that the Illuminati orchestrated the French Revolution, wiped out the entire aristocracy, beheaded the king, and plunged the country into that horrifying revolutionary terror. Later, Napoleon comes along and cuts a deal with the Illuminati, but the moment he crowns himself emperor, they turn on him, and even his defeat at Waterloo gets pinned on the Illuminati, who supposedly built secret diplomatic channels with Russia, England, Prussia, and Vienna, and sent those armies against Napoleon to finish off his power for good. The second theory says the Illuminati fled Europe across the ocean, and there their knowledge, skills, occult practices, and mysticism found fertile ground. America was a young, still-forming state. No old political elites, no old money. According to the legend, the Illuminati got their hooks into the American elite, the Founding Fathers, the people who would go on to sign the Declaration of Independence. They supposedly took total control of these people's minds and folded them into the Illuminati order. And this is where the core premise kicks in. America is now the main nest of the Illuminati. They installed a new elite in power and, through the American elite, are trying to run the world. As proof that the Illuminati control America, people point to the dollar bill, flip it over, and there's the pyramid and the all-seeing eye, with New World Order written underneath, plus Roman numerals for 1776, the year the order was founded. And the claim goes that the Illuminati are so powerful, they literally branded the world's main currency with their symbol. But what's the deal with 1776 on the bill? For the gullible, it's an Illuminati symbol, but it's actually just the date the Declaration of Independence was signed. Conspiracy enthusiasts also point to an owl on the dollar bill, supposedly the sacred companion of the goddess Minerva. One of the conspiracy theory's proponents, Fritz Springmeier, lists the following families as Illuminati bloodlines: the Astors, DuPonts, Freemasons, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, and Merovingians. Merovingians here referring to basically all the royal houses of Europe. On top of that, Disney, Krupp, and McDonald. Every resource, every piece of propaganda, all of it, according to this theory, traces back to Illuminati-linked families. The theory kept growing, first in the 20s, then the 30s, and by the 40s it had ballooned into rumors of an actual world government, one supposedly trying to control the entire planet, and supposedly stacked with Freemasons and Jews. Huge numbers of people bought into this, convinced these groups controlled everything, even secret clubs at universities. Take secret university clubs, for example. One of the most prestigious universities, Yale, has a secret student society called Skull and Bones. Basically, the entire American elite that passed through Yale ended up in this club at some point. The popular mainstream version of the story is that it's just a club of young students goofing around, sharing secrets with each other, and one of the club's supposed traditions is that members have to tell each other everything about themselves, including their sexual experiences and fantasies. Conspiracy theorists latch onto that last detail to link it to the Illuminati. Sexual experiences and fantasies, therefore sexual deviance, therefore an Illuminati conspiracy. There's actually a fun bit of footage from George W. Bush's election campaign. Bush the Republican and John Kerry the Democrat both get asked by a reporter, "Is it true you were both in the secret Skull and Bones Club?" And they both answer, "It's so secret we really can't talk about it at all," and laugh. The reporter gives this knowing look, like everything's been confirmed without a word being said. But it's true that Skull and Bones really has produced a huge number of finance moguls, stockbrokers, political scientists, campaign strategists, and U.S. presidents. Then there's the other angle, the erasure of family ties and family boundaries. What does that give the conspiracy theorists to work with? It means, in their reading, the Illuminati reject family and family bonds altogether, mainly because they're supposedly pedophiles and because they want to live forever. And sure enough, theories about longevity, life extension, and immortality show up in basically every secret society: the Templars, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, all of them. But how do conspiracy theorists connect pedophilia to eternal life? You'll be amazed. The theory claims that children's blood supposedly produces a substance called adrenochrome, that a tiny drop of it costs an insane amount of money, and that the global elite drink the blood of minors, but only after abusing them sexually first. Those are the three cornerstones the whole global conspiracy rests on: money, pedophilia, and eternal life. These three elements later fed directly into QAnon, the far-right conspiracy movement. It's complete nonsense, and yet millions of people in America, and several million more around the world, believe it. And that's where another conspiracy theory comes out of: Pizzagate. In 2016, Clinton is running against Trump for president. Mrs. Clinton, the Democrat, versus Mr. Trump, the Republican. At some point, campaign chairman John Podesta's emails get hacked and published on WikiLeaks. The internet's collective conspiracy brain immediately starts combing through the emails and notices that Podesta frequently uses the phrase cheese pizza, ordering it from one specific place called Comet Ping Pong in Washington. And you might ask, what does any of that have to do with pedophilia, Clinton, and Pizzagate? Well, all this material travels from WikiLeaks over to 4chan, the internet's main hub for memes, conspiracy theories, and trolls. And there, people decide that cheese pizza is actually code, the abbreviation CP, short for child pornography. Supposedly, they were coding messages to have minors brought in for their gratification, or maybe even to drink their blood to produce adrenochrome. Yes, this is complete nonsense, but because of it, that Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria gets hit with an absolutely insane amount of harassment. People show up outside with signs reading, "Hands off our kids." And at one point a man actually shows up with a rifle and shoots up the pizzeria, though nobody gets killed. The owners get absolutely torched with hate online, and people keep showing up from various Republican-leaning states demanding to see the basements where the children are supposedly held, or at least some bloodstains on the walls. Naturally, no blood, no evidence of any abuse, nothing was ever found, but Pizzagate has become a rock-solid piece of American internet mythology, treated almost as settled fact that Mrs. Clinton drinks children's blood. It's one of those conspiracy theories that just won't die. And even though the entire political establishment dismissed it as nonsense, Pizzagate still did real damage to Clinton's campaign. And as we all know, she lost to Trump. At his rallies, when people in the crowd would shout, "They're all pedophiles," Trump would respond with something like, "There you go, regular people are demanding these Democrats get locked up. But we're going to handle everything through the courts, thank you." And out of the whole Pizzagate saga comes yet another story, QAnon. It's the reason people are still getting banned from Facebook and X to this day. Hopefully that won't happen on YouTube, so let's keep this part brief. It's basically more of the same kind of conspiracy thinking. The claim goes that Trump, once he was shown the evidence behind Pizzagate, realized the entire American elite was made up of pedophiles, and that he was planning some kind of mass trial to put them all behind bars. A date was set for when this process would supposedly begin, and then people started tying the second coming of Christ to that same date, and then Trump's own political second coming got tacked on too. Basically, QAnon became this giant catch-all bucket containing everything at once. The Illuminati, the Freemasons, the Elders of Zion, the world government, the Golden Billion, adrenochrome, Pizzagate, pedophilia. Trump was supposed to be the one standing against all of it, but as we know, he lost the next election. And that's when a crowd of QAnon believers stormed the Capitol. It's honestly astonishing, total nonsense from start to finish. People genuinely believe it. And that's the story. Back at the start of the video, I mentioned jazz. If you think about it, jazz often makes a triangle shape with his hands, and Beyoncé does the same thing. What is that supposed to be? A pyramid, obviously. According to the theory, that's how they signal their connection to the Illuminati. If you Google jazz or Beyoncé Illuminati, you'll find thousands of links claiming that's exactly how they're signaling it to their fellow insiders. On top of that, Lady Gaga has been accused of both Illuminati ties and outright devil worship. There was even a whole petition to try to cancel her Super Bowl halftime show, because rumor had it she'd wear a flesh-toned costume and perform some kind of ritual that would instantly enslave millions of people to Satan. And that's the wild part. This tiny little Bavarian cell that existed for less than a decade ended up saturating everything around it with its ideas and symbols. And through the years, the road from the Illuminati leads us all the way to Pizzagate and stories about blood drinking and pedophilia. We're all smart, educated people, and most of us understand these theories are ridiculous nonsense. That said, we obviously can't deny that global elites and secret societies exist. Personally, I think it's extremely unlikely they're involved in anything like what these theories describe. But there's a tiny chance. It's up to you to decide and draw your own conclusions. Thanks for watching.